Welcome to this week's edition of Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. And I did want to note, so Mayor King was talking about the fortuitous lining up of needing a test at the same time as the Yamhill County Public Health testing day at the Yamhill County Fairgrounds. And I will note that a friend of mine lives in Brooklyn and with school-age children, and they are all getting tested every week between the school and other settings. And apparently when they go to a testing center, which are open 24 hours a day, because it's New York, I guess, they have the rapid test and then they have a PCR. And so you do both at the same time so that you get that initial result, even though it's less certain. And then you'll get the PCR results within 20 hours. So that's really different, as you can imagine, Mayor, than here, where it's like, well, where do we get it? How soon can we get an appointment? Do we have to wait? How long are we going to get it? How long until we get the results? But did you want to talk at all about that? Just the challenges of being in school and needing to get tested?
Well, something that was different when I spoke to the school this time, they do have rapid tests available before the students come back. So that's nice to know, if someone's feeling better but hadn't gotten a test, or even with a test, to know that they're not going to be back in the class until they at least get that rapid negative. So that's good news. It would be very nice if we had those available at schools. I'll keep advocating for that. But yeah, I'm thankful that our county public health is getting those out there for people that need them.
And I do know that the plan is at some point also have them available at the testing clinics. So the 2 testing clinics a week at the fairgrounds, and then having them available. We just haven't got to that point yet.
I was reading last night, I think it's 85% accuracy on those rapid tests if performed. So
that is pretty good. Yeah. And then for updates from the city of Amity, what would you like to share, Mayor?
Yeah, I have some exciting news I was able to announce at the council meeting. So back in spring, we had some community members bring forth concerns about speeding past their house on Nursery Street. And that was something that council was like, yeah, what can we do? So staff and I initiated conversations with ODOT. They came out and did their speed study, and we got their proposed speed zone order, which we were in agreement with. So in the coming months, all of the speed limits outside of the 20-mile-an-hour zones for schools inside city limits on both Nursery and Trade Street will be dropped to 25 miles an hour. And they'll extend 2 city limits, because the speeding up as you head out of town starts early. And so it'll be really great. Our average speed came up to 32 miles an hour. So hopefully with that drop to 25, we'll be consistently at a safer speed.
Well, that's very exciting.
Yeah, that's the only big news I have to share this week, but we're all very happy about it.
That's great. And I will say, Mayor Watkins, do you have any situations like that you're like, oh, I need ODOT to come in with their speed study?
We have tried that. I think we're going to keep trying, because we are trying to convince them that especially our 2 intersections and our main streets really need to have their speeds. Our speeds right now are 25 all the way through there. So, it's not even so much that, it's enforcement. And I don't know how, we really don't have the police department to do that much enforcement. We've got, one officer on duty at any given time. And, they're doing the best they can, but they've got other stuff to work with. So I don't know. A lot of our back streets around here, actually, I wish we could take Main Street, the whole section of Main Street, and just knock it back down to 20. Because that's all residential. It's always been residential, and to have it 25 people going through there is really, really dangerous. I sat there the other day and watched at the corner of Pine Street, which is our part of ODOT that's on the east end of town. So where if you're familiar with it, where Barrel 47 is. And if you're going east-west on that part of the street, you have to stop and make sure the traffic is clear before you can go. If you're coming north-south, you're free to go, but east-west. And I watched two cars right together come right to that street, one going eastbound and one going westbound, and they just wandered right on through. I mean, they had no idea because there is no signage that tells them if you're going to go through, you got to stop. And that's where, so I don't know. I'm envious. I'm very happy for you, Rachel. Mayor King. I think that's great. And we'll be very careful when we're driving through Amity.
Unfortunately, they can't tell us when the signs will be changed or when it will be enforceable. So I'm trying to tell people, practice. Practice now. Get yourself used to it.
I've always been kind of spooky about trying to go very fast through Amity anyway because of all of the buildings that are there. I mean, it's just, and you're right by the school. You're going right by the school. It's, yeah, that's not a good place to be trying to zip through anyway, so.
And just like Carlton, it has crosswalks on almost all the blocks in that main area.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate practice.
Yes, practice is good.
You could just keep practicing. Yeah. Well, Mayor, anything else from the city? Sorry.
Excuse me. No, go ahead. You were asking Mayor King?
No, I was going to ask Mayor Watkins if there was anything else from the city of Carlton.
It was I keep thinking it's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon. It has been. I know. I'm sorry. It has been pretty quiet here. Our guys have just been knuckling down trying to get the transmission line done. Our city manager was away on a professional meeting, and so we didn't have her to keep things going. So we just kind of coasted along here pretty quietly. But we've got our meeting tonight, and I think once our council meeting tonight, we're going to be looking at the rezoning of the 16 acres over by the school, and also looking at the contract, I think, and hopefully awarding the contract for the redoing our comprehensive plan and our planning code. So, as I've looked through that more and more, it's scary. We need to get that done quick. So we'll see how that goes. And let's see, we have a counselor that is going to be departing early. So yeah, her significant other got a job. He's going to work with a hospital down in Medford. And so, yeah, he's taking a long-term contract with them. So they're moving down there. We're really sad to see her go, but
yeah,
so we're going to be opening up on November the 3rd, I think we'll be opening up the applications for a new council member. She's leaving as of November 3rd is her last. So that's the November meeting will be her last meeting. So I think that about covers it. Everybody in town is getting their houses re-roofed. Are you guys seeing a lot of that too?
I am not, but maybe in Carlton.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it's like every other house in town. We have had steady roofing, I think, since spring. There have been at least half a dozen houses around our area and all over town getting roofed. So
wow.
I keep thinking it's probably COVID money, which is great. I mean, I love seeing it used that way.
It's a very good use for sure. Well, I will say that the water line project has been very helpful for us at the county in our public works side of things. We're going to have all of Panther Creek Road overlaid as part of your work. But then we're also adding on of Meadow Lake Road that really needed to be repaved. So as part of the whole thing, which is saving us, the last I looked at it was $175,000 of savings with combining it with your work. So thanks for doing a big public works project.
Yeah, well, we were pretty excited about that too, because I think we were a little worried that, you know, we might be having to fill in the whole thing. So
Right,
no,
right.
This is when you really like seeing, you know, the governmental coordination. I mean, this is what we do. We should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Another thing that prompted me by your comments about land use is that I just remembered that we're in the middle of implementing the accessory dwelling unit statute that the legislature passed for rural residential zoning. So there may be more little apartments and detached and attached buildings coming around your community.
That would be good to see. Yeah, I think there are probably areas where they could do that. I'm hoping that we can put some incentives into our new planning code to encourage people to put in some ADUs and use them for residences, not short-term rentals, but you know,
I will forward on to you. So I read in the Sunday New York Times, there was a great article about what San Diego has done. And and I know, like, we're talking about California. Come on, we're not supposed to talk about California. But they have, just like Oregon, they have a deficit of housing, right? Obviously, housing is going up dramatically in cost, and there just aren't places for people to build and to live. And so San Diego has taken the state rules and they've added, some sophisticated layers onto it that has prompted really like a building boom in single-family zoning kind of lots, right? Where there might be like a house that has space on it, and the city has made it perfectly. They actually accelerate the permitting for building behind the house or in front of the house. So it's the thing that they want to see, and because you can do it really fast, it's accelerating that building.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, they're hurting down there too, but anyway.
Mayor King, were you going to say something?
Oh, just in our older communities, when we're built, we have a lot of half-acre lots in town. And so that really, I mean, that's unusual to hear about, but it's normal here in Amity. And so to have that available would be awesome.
Yeah. You're off.
I will forward it around to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it described, the article did a good job of doing that balance of, there are people in the community who don't want to see an apartment building across the street from them, but they also want to have their own children be able to afford to live in the community. So, there's all these balancing acts that the cities are doing, obviously, as you know.
Yeah.
And in those, in those policies that they're passing, Casey, does that include any kind of restriction on how or who they rent to, that it would be a monthly rental rather than a long-term rental rather than a short-term rental?
So Rebecca, I don't know. And I was going to pull you into this conversation because I remember getting that email from you that you were very interested in this. My memory of it is that the city of San Diego has done essentially accelerated process, a 2-week permitting process for homes that will be for people who make under a certain level of median household income. So essentially they're like, if you want to build a house that's in this, price range or rental range, and it has to be for a long-term rental or for a homeowner that's in this price range, you get it. Essentially, you walk in, you give them the plans, you pay the fee, and you build the house. So it's a rapidly, it's much, much, much faster than if you were putting up an apartment building on a a green field, like a bare lot.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you were building housing that was for the highest income levels.
Mm-hmm.
That may get to the question of short-term versus long-term.
And then what is the legislation that's been passed here in Oregon? Is that?
Yeah, so the legislation that was passed in Oregon allows you to build a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex on any single family zoning. But your community has to approve it. If you're over, you have to approve the code changes if you're over, I want to say 25,000. It's either 10,000 or 25,000 in population. What I don't know though, Mayor, is whether, and Mayor Watkins, you may know this, is whether that actually applies to smaller communities, just straight away, or whether you don't have to follow it. And I'll do some quick research on that one.
Yeah, right now I don't know that. I remember looking through it once and I've gotten sidetracked and I need to get back to it and see, you know, our concern here is that once again, because it is very attractive, is for people to want to build those for, you know, vacation rentals or short-term rentals. And we're having to start, we need to get serious about what we're going to do with those, because that's you know, there's a demand for both around this town, and I don't know how we're going to balance that.
Yes, I think it's a concerning trend across the country. I was seeing a national news report just this past week about the city of Atlanta experiencing large amounts of investment purchases of homes in new housing that's being built. Something like 70% of the housing is being purchased by Wall Street investors, who will then be able to, you know, just rent them out rather than people who would be able to afford to purchase a home. So what that's doing is not only driving the price of the housing up because they can afford to pay all cash and over asking price. So people who want to invest in a home cannot do that. But it also just limits the ability of the people who live in the area to actually invest in their hometown and become permanent members of that town, which in turn will decrease the number of people available to take the jobs at the hourly rate that the businesses in the area can afford. So it's a really nasty, you know, spiraling down of the affordability of a town, both for the people who live there and the businesses who need employees.
Yeah, we've been watching that a lot. We still maintain some pretty close ties over with folks in Boise. And one of our friends over there is with the IHFA, which is Idaho Housing Finance Association. They do, you know, they work with a lot of low income housing situations. And they have, you know, apartment buildings over there, their property values were looking up, and they've got apartment buildings over there that were being used for low income housing. And that exact same thing happened. Investors came in, they kicked the folks out that were in the apartment buildings, they redid the apartment buildings, and that whole area, that whole Ada County area is for affordable housing or any kind of housing, and especially affordable. Ada Canyon County is just a mess because of people taking advantage of exactly those situations.
Right.
So.
And I will note that,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
No, I was just going to say, of course, we all know that every community needs a balance of, you know, class structures so that we can all live together rather than, you know, if you have all high-end people living in the town, who's going to work there?
Well, if you live in some place like Fort Bragg, everybody in Fort Bragg lives there, and they all go up to or go down. Would it be down the coast or up the coast?
Down the coast to Mendocino.
Yeah, they all, and Mendocino is, you know, that's where everybody goes to. That's the high end place. So
Right.
all the people, all the baristas and everything live in Fort Bragg, and then they go up there to work. We, you know, that was happening back in the 80s, though. That's, I mean.
Yes, right. But it's, as a trend, I don't know that that's, you know, the way we really want our communities to be.
No, and that was just a forerunner of what we're dealing with now. But
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would note that so outside, and again, you were talking about outside of the Yamhill County area, so I get to as well. And I started it by talking about San Diego. In Tigard, there's a large apartment complex. I think it's 200 units that's older folks. And it's like, it was set up and built as low-income housing, stable rent for people who are older. And because it was built using the low-income housing tax credits, it was set and capped for a set number of years. But when those years end, the developer, owner, manager of the apartments can charge market rate again. And so what's happening is that there's a whole apartment complex, 200 households, who suddenly have no idea how they're going to afford their rental. Right, so it's, I feel like the things that we're talking about here, we really need to make sure that we don't have a like, oh, after this date, it'll all be, you know, market rate, for example, if we're really going to invest.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for mentioning that about short-term rentals, Rebecca. And I do know that Lincoln County actually is, there's folks working on a ballot measure that would ban short-term vacation rentals from unincorporated parts of the county. Mm-hmm. And in their case, Representative Gomberg could give you the argument much better than I can, but essentially the proponent's argument is that having a massive influx of people who their presence in the community isn't funded in any way. There's not like, it's not like they get more money for fire and more money for sheriffs, more money for road, just because of the folks who are visiting the community, that they can't actually handle the level of service that they need to. So it's an interesting argument, but it's also one that's rooted in the economics of living at the coast.
Right, right.
And I don't think I want to ban Airbnbs, but I think it's important that there be a balance, like in Carlton.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten into a serious discussion about that yet, as far as what we're going to be doing on that. But we need to look at what our housing stock is and how we're going to be dealing with that, because right now there just is no place. If somebody wants to move here, they're kind of out of luck.
Right.
Let's see, the 38 units in JR Meadows 1 are, as far as I can tell, they're pretty much all sold already. And there's the last 3 are still in the process of being built. So, you know, those were practically sold before they were even finished. And that's only 38 units. We're looking at another, I can't remember how many, 41 or maybe more than that over with the apartment buildings, somewhere upwards of 50 or 60 for that. But if they go like these did, why, you know, they're gone before they're even built. So it's not good.
Okay, so I was doing the research and it looks like small cities are under 10,000. So most of the cities in Yamhill County are in that designation, which means that you are not required to adopt code to implement House Bill 2001. However, you can take the model code or the code from other communities and adopt it in order to provide more housing options and flexibility. So there you go, and I'll give you more information in a follow-up email.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be really handy, especially as we're getting ready to do our code. We might as well make sure that that's included.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it provides just so many more options, right? Which, as I think was kind of Rebecca's point, is a lot of different types of housing in shapes, sizes, and costs. And in order to have as many different kinds of people who have the, I mean, frankly, I think have the right to live in the community that they grew up in, or that they raised their kids in. You know, that's when the city of Willamina talks about what they're doing, it's so that elders can still live in the community. And Rebecca, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say I really appreciate the way you put it, because I think that's exactly what I meant to say. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us for this. And I will note that, Rebecca, can you remind us, you help run First Baptist's programs?
No.
Oh,
actually,
you don't?
I'm the executive director of Saturday Morning Breakfast.
That's right.
And we're currently a part of Co-op Ministries in McMinnville, but we are quickly becoming our own standalone nonprofit, and expect to be able to expand our services once we get more grant money. And we've got some really exciting people on the board that have some great ideas. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
and
well,
Rebecca
you.
has an interest in housing issues. So
yes, I do. Because I think food insecurity and housing insecurity go hand in hand. So they're important to. It's important, I think, to keep an eye on the balance in our communities.
And to that end, reminder, mayors, that next week is Cost of Housing Summit. So I'll send out another reminder email, but we can go over a lot of these issues. I'll make sure that everybody has like the HB 2001 code, and maybe even some of the ideas that the city of San Diego is doing. I think it's just so funny. Like, let's talk about what other states are doing, because we all have the same problem, right? Which is that median household income and the cost of housing, there's a big gap there. Well, I wanted to draw in Pauline Metoxen, who works with NAMI, the local NAMI chapter, and with Encompass Yamhill Valley. And Pauline works really closely with our homeless neighbors. And I wanted to check in to see with her if she had anything she'd like to update the community about.
I don't think so.
Okay, that sounds good. Pauline, are
Thank
you going to join us? Are you going to join the homeless outreach and service provider meeting?
Either I am or Annie is. I'm not sure which.
Okay.
Might be better if it was her at the moment.
Sometimes when you have to convey hard realities, it's better to have a gentle voice, and sometimes it's better to have the real strong voice.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, I did want to thank you, Pauline. I did want to make sure folks knew in the community kind of the dynamics of COVID as they exist right now. And as Mayor King knows, we've had folks continually getting exposed to COVID and getting COVID through schools. But what it looks like is that school settings do not seem to be the massive spreader that some folks were concerned about, I guess, is a nice way to put it. Somebody told me it was a great experiment. And I was like, I have hope that it's actually going to be, dang, it's the quarantine is hard, but most of us aren't getting sick. So Mayor King, has that been your experience? How are you feeling with schooling started?
I think that Personally, I have seen more cases or heard about more cases in the younger population, but I agree with you that it's not like contributing to big community outbreaks. I think it's bound to happen when you have a lot of children together. And we know that from every school year. You know, you get the kids back together and some people get sick. But I think as time goes on, things are really falling into place of how are we going to best manage this? How can we put these practices we know to work into best use? So yeah, I have seen more, but I think of at least a lot of people I know, our kids have been really isolated. And so that's another balance that we're talking about. And I'm happy to see that it wasn't worst case scenario or hasn't been. And I think that after school activities and extracurricular are most likely leading to more sickness than the actual school day-to-day experience.
Well, I will say that I've been hearing a similar thing. So, and our son, so our children, my wife is our children's teacher, so they're homeschooled. But our son is newly in the beginning level of the Salem Symphony, like the youth symphony, and speaking to the isolation, he has such joy from going and playing the cello with other people, just such pure joy with a mask on. You know, it's totally doable, but there's so many kids who are so happy.
I just want to share this, that my second grader wears an N95 mask to school all day long and has no complaints about it whatsoever. And that makes me very happy.
That is a really good point. Well, I also want to note that with the decline overall in cases slowly in the state and the number of hospitalizations slowly in the state, we're now down about 50% below our peak, which what it looks like in Yamhill County is we have about the same number of cases on a weekly basis that we had in mid-August of this year. So, you know, as we were building up to a peak. So we are falling, but it's still way more cases than we had the rest of the year. And as far as I hear, public health seems to be holding up well, but I know that nurses and hospital workers are very exhausted. So huge shout out to all those folks who continue to show up every day. But on the positive side right now, we're, as Mayor King noted last week, we continue to bump up in our the number of vaccine doses. And right now, I believe we're at almost 68% of the eligible population who's had at least one dose. And that represents a fairly significant chunk of folks who are still in the process of getting either the 1 and the 2 doses. So bravo out there. And I know that public health continues to get vaccines out the door to people.
Also, I checked the test positivity and we're almost down to 5%. And I remember Director Manfred saying they shoot for that 5% to feel like things are under control. So that's good news as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, we're at 7.3 to 10. For some reason, public health gives me a range. So 7.3 to 10, but you're right, it's dramatically lower than it has been.
Their website says 5.4, so hopefully that's where it's at.
Interesting. Yeah, my daily or my weekly update, we used to get a daily, unfortunately we don't now, but it's 7.3 to 10% over the past week. So we'll see. But regardless, we are seeing a reduction in cases and a reduction in test positivity rate. So bravo.
And they have more important things than daily updates to everyone. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
This is very true. It's very, very true. But with that, it just makes me grateful for the 18 months of people working on this. Though they say that they're energized and they're continuing to work hard, our public health staff has been through a tremendous ordeal, just like the families who've lost somebody in our community, and the folks, honestly, who are working, trying to live their lives with long COVID, because we do have more people in our community than I wish I knew who are suffering from long COVID.
Going back to Mayor Watkins' comment about, showing that children are much less severely affected. As a parent, the long COVID is something that I think about as, we are seeing that the children are not getting quite as severely sick, but this is a brand new virus. So I think that's another reason it's important to be vigilant, is that just like anything else, it will take time to play out to see the long-term effects.
Yeah, that's a really good point. For our household, we're being very careful with our children specifically because of that we don't want them to have something 10 years down the road.
Yeah, that's what I keep thinking, and we talk about a lot here in our house, is just, because we always are speculating about these things, is how
Is it just me, or can we not hear her? Okay. I started to look at my computer. What did I do?
Okay.
We can hear you now.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself that, gosh, I've made it through half a meeting without any problems, and I guess I shouldn't have even thought it to myself. But I think about people who have come down with COVID, and maybe they've made it through somewhat okay, but you just don't know what long-term effects, or what we're going to see even 2 or 3 years from now, where it's bouncing back and something is coming up that nobody expected. So yeah, this is one of those that's just not really, it's a little unnerving. You just feel like you need to tiptoe around.
Yes, it does feel like that. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share or talk about before we sign off for the day? And I apologize, I had to go a few minutes early because of a commissioner meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you had said something about discussing the landfill, but
oh yes, thank you for that reminder. So if you had heard, the Riverbend landfill was cited with a notice of violation by the Environmental Protection Agency, the federal agency, and that was specifically, it came out of what's called a nuisance study that neighbors to the landfill had complained enough about specific problems that the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality initiated a nuisance study, really looking at all aspects of the landfill operation to find out what was causing smells and sites and release of gross water, for example. And so then DEQ did the study, and midway through the study, it sounds like they actually transferred over the work to the EPA because it was beyond their ability. Something about it, they transferred it over. EPA came in, found violations, proposed, essentially awarded, like, here you go, this is your legal problem now that will require mediation and a fine. The landfill settled with them for $107,000 on, I believe it was 2 of the notices of violation, but one of them is still pending with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. So that is what I learned from my meeting recently. And I took a lot of notes. I'm happy to share the notes with anybody as you wish, as you want to learn more. But really the fact of the matter is that the landfill, when EPA came out, they found that the landfill was leaking methane. And methane is, one, it's a potent greenhouse gas. It also is very dangerous to the community. And it also generally carries with it a lot of other volatile organic compounds that are really bad for people's health in the surrounding area. And then there's the smell components of it as well. So when you're smelling a bad smell, there's often things with it that aren't the smell that are bad for you. So we'll see what the landfill does from here. They did not tell me any of their plans beyond continuing down the route of pulling in a little bit of soil and a little bit of garbage for the foreseeable future.
And a super quick question with that, does it affect the county's newest contract with them? Or is it separate?
It would be separate. Yeah, the commissioners were aware of the notices of violation when they approved the new updated and long-term license agreement. Yeah, I think I put that delicately. But the fact of the matter is that we still have a functioning landfill in our community that's not open to the public and that continues to release methane. And one of the things to note is that right now the Department of Environmental Quality is finalizing a set of climate protection goals and rules that would, in theory, reduce the methane emissions from landfills. But what it really does is for landfills that don't have a plan to deal with their methane, they are required to. And for landfills that have a plan, they're required to, if this is the grid of monitoring, they have to double or quadruple the grid. So the number of points that they monitor at, but the frequency doesn't change. So right now, the required frequency of monitoring their landfill is actually once a quarter, they go out and measure for methane emissions. My concern is one, that the methane emissions that were found by EPA were in excess of the legally allowed, but they also, it appeared that they'd been leaking for many years at that point. So increasing the density of monitoring without increasing the frequency and time, and then having somebody else do that, I don't see how we're going to get to a situation where the landfill isn't leaking and where we don't know it. So really the methane leaks is part of a bigger thing around the country where pipelines, compressor units, well jacks may be leaking methane and are likely leaking methane without us knowing it or being able to do anything about it. So that's a concern to me. Thank you for asking about it.
I was curious about that landfill when we first moved here in 2004. I kind of wondered about some things going on over there, and it's been a cause for concern. Right now we're doubly concerned because we don't know where our garbage is if they're even going to be able to pick it up here shortly, because they're, doing whatever it is they're doing. So it's.
Well, I do know that right now, the transfer station in McMinnville, if a person was to, who used to go to the landfill to drop off garbage and recycling, if they went to the McMinnville transfer station, they would be paying less. And they're just as likely to get garbage sorted out into appropriate waste streams, and then true garbage being sent to a landfill.
I don't know about Carlton, but I think other cities are waiting to hear back from Recology as they reassess their situation. So yes. We're kind of in limbo to hear next.
Yeah, that's kind of where we are too. We were supposed to, in fact, start getting yard waste and glass recycling going in here this year with our new contract, and they have delayed us on that and pulled back on that until they've decided what they're going to do. So, people in town have just been asking for that for years, and we've been trying to get that done, and we thought we had it done this year, and now we're back to square one again. So yeah, we're the same way, Mayor King. We're kind of just waiting.
Well, I do hear that if there's enough volume increase, Recology gets another volume discount when they take to Coffin Butte. So it's entirely possible that there won't be a significant change in the cost for having to haul it a little bit further, just because it'll be they'll be hauling a lot more of the total garbage. Well, thank you for asking about that. I better go to my next meeting. Mayor King, did you have anything? Okay.
No, I was just going to say go, Commissioner. Thank you for the meeting.
Yeah, thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Pauline, and thank you, Rebecca, for adding your thoughts too.
Thank you.